Hello everybody, it is Napalm Dawn here on G4G, and today we're going to discuss how you could get a really good setup for making a rising up agent in beta 6. Now, for the most part, I'm going to confine the majority of my ideas to the content that will be available in beta 6, which covers season 1 of Marvel Avengers Alliance. So season 1 back in the day started when the game started back in 2012 and ran until August of 2013. So the majority of gear that we are going to cover in this video falls into that category. It must be between the beginning of the game, which is obvious, and prior to August of 2013. You'll see on my agent that I have the Blade of the Guardian, the Ferric Shield, the Ionic Sledge, and the Neurotrope. Two of the pieces of gear here, the Ferric Shield and the Ionic Sledge, actually come from Spec Ops, so they are easy to obtain. Blade of the Guardian and Neurotrope, it is undefined at this point in time how you will be able to get them in Beta 6, whether they will simply be in the store or maybe caked into a mission somewhere. They are somewhat important to the kit, but you can actually get around them if you find that the Neurotrope and the Blade of the Guardian are hard to get. As always, a disclaimer at the beginning of the video here, Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux will not be on mobile, so don't ask for mobile versions. We do not have an ETA for Beta 6. As of yet, the team hoped to get it done within the first quarter of 2024. However, some issues arose both code-wise and personal-wise for some members of the coding team, so the Beta 6 release is running on a bit of a delay, but unfortunately at this point I do not have a ETA as to when it will arrive. The version you see me using in this video is Beta 5.6, which is a internal tester build only. It is a build of the game that has the chapters and the spec ops that will be available when Beta 6 drops. It does not have a functional PvAI that actually rewards heroes, so that is one thing that I cannot fully test as of this point, and that is to earn heroes that come from PvAI. This version is not available to the public. The most recent version you can get is 5.2, but this will give you something to look forward to. Now, the suit that I am using, you're going to have to largely ignore. It eventually down the road will play very, very well into setting up a rising up agent, and that is the Scrapper's Vortex Tech suit. This is a very endgame suit that was available from the later parts of PvP way back in the original game. It is very, very deep into Season 2, nearly the end of the game, that the Infiltrator Vortex and the Scrapper Vortex was available. So you're not going to see it in Beta 6, but it'll eventually get there. The EISOs that I'm running for it, again, you're probably not going to see in Beta 6, but it is something to shoot for in the future. I'm running the Close Quarter Champion ISO, which says gains rising up when attacked by enemy melee attacks. Also, single target attacks gain Finest Hour. And then Risen Force, single target attacks gain rising up. You can ignore the third over here as it doesn't really pertain. But this combination of Close Quarter Champion and Risen Force is phenomenal, especially when you put it on a Scrapper agent or somebody who somehow gets multiple attacks in a turn, like maybe an Infiltrator agent that counters, thereby giving free attacks for the rising up, which then goes into the Close Quarter Champion, where your single target attacks gain Finest Hour. If you don't remember what Finest Hour is, it means you do more damage when you are buffed by the Rising Up buffs. Ferric Shield, the Ionic Sledge, we're going to go ahead and talk about right now, and then we'll see it in action. So the Ferric Shield comes from Spec Ops 9. It is a simple research to get to this. You basically start off with the Ferric Blade, and then you get a task to research an upgrade to it that takes it from the Ferric Blade to the Ferric Shield. The Ferric Blade is largely useless. It is not a hard-hitting weapon. It puts tenderized out on the enemy, and it exploits magnetism. In Season 1, you don't really have a lot of things that magnetize the enemy, but we will talk about that. So when you get the chance to upgrade it to the Ferric Shield, you absolutely should. The reason why the Ferric Shield is good is it's a cheap way to get a chance to get a random buff when you're attacked. That is this reactive support over here. So if your agent actually happens to be a tank, then every time he gets attacked or she gets attacked, you will gain the Rising Up buffs. Now, it's not a guarantee. It is a chance. However, it is a good way for your agent to passively generate Rising Up buffs. When you attack with it, again, it exploits magnetism, and it also puts out Dizzy. Now, if you want to get the full value of the shield, you might be thinking, okay, so how do I magnetize people in Season 1? The answers really are only about 4 different ways. Magneto, Rescue of all things, and Vision. The reason why I say Vision is because Vision has an ability, a punch, that causes downgrade. Being magnetized is actually a caked in feature of downgrade. Didn't really know that. When you put downgrade on somebody, it actually magnetizes them if they're metal. And you can see here, Vision does it with the Intangible Fist. So that's one way to magnetize people. Obviously, Magneto is another one. But there is one more in Rescue. Rescue will attempt to put out magnetized on the enemy if possible via the Protector protocol. When she uses it, she gives herself shields, but she also does this called Magnetic Attraction. Protects allies from single target or area attacks and applies magnetize to the attackers. So if she happens to be your tank, she is applying a free magnetize, which the Ferric Shield, ferric meaning iron, could potentially exploit. I don't think it's really worth building into the exploit magnetism point over here. That's not really why you would want to use the Ferric Shield. The Ferric Shield is good as a reactive support. So if the agent is tanking, again, like I said, good way to apply Rising Up buffs to the agent. Now, one of the next big keys to this is the Ionic Sledge. And we're going to go ahead and talk about that. So the Ionic Hammer is a piece of gear that you get in Spec Ops 10, which is the Wonder Man Spec Ops. Basically, the gear here tries to be Wonder Man on a stick. So you get the Ionic Hammer, and then you get a task to go ahead and upgrade it. That's why this says upgradable. Now, the Ionic Hammer itself, if you don't have a Neurotrope or the Blade of the Guardian, then the Ionic Hammer is a good way to get your agent the Rising Up buffs. Once you upgrade it to the Sledge, the weapon gets a little more fancy, and you get a Finest Hour item. It also, just like the lower version, restores health and stamina when you attack with it. So the two of them combined are pretty solid. If you don't have a Neurotrope, if you don't have a Blade of the Guardian, if you don't have a way of generating the buffs to your agent, you're going to want to run the Hammer to get a few of them going, and then the Sledge. Honestly, the best bet is not to run the Hammer, but rather be a tanking agent and let the Ferric Shield do the work. This way, you're generating sort of like, passive income, basically. You are generating the rising up buffs when your agent isn't doing something, and then when it's actually your agent's turn around and use the sledge, and you have a little less setup to do. The best combination, though, is a Neurotrope and a sledge. Use the Neurotrope first, give yourself the buffs, and then go ahead and break loose with the sledge. That is probably the biggest two items in this kit. However, we need to also look at the possibility that the Blade of the Guardian and the Neurotrope might be a little expensive to get with in-game currency, or might be tough to get. The Ferric Shield, the Ionic Hammer, the Ionic Sledge are all guarantees. If for some reason you also want to build into the magnetized and do it off your agent, you're going to want to get the soldering iron. That is one of the few ways in Season 1 that your agent can actually put out magnetized, because it does downgrade. Magnetized really comes more into play in Season 2. Not super easy to actually get done in Season 1, but it is possible with hard work. So the soldering iron, which does downgrade, comes from Spec Ops 7, and this would actually be relatively good in PvP. You're not going to see the cube and any of the PvAI things that you will be fighting when Beta 6 comes out. So attacking tech-based attacks on enemy agents, it'll be handy, but it won't be super strong. I would recommend getting at least a soldering iron there somewhere. And if you're doing PvAI and you're running into some agents that do cause you grief, at least you farm for this item and have it, and could sort of shut down tech attacks similar to the Mystic. I don't exactly know what is considered a beneficial technology status. It says it prevents it, but I'm not really too sure what's in that category. So maybe it'll be a little more helpful than I think. However, Sledge, Hammer, Ferric Shield, all relatively easy to get, either through research or farming bosses. Of course, the Blade of the Guardian and the Neurotrope are one of the best overall things. So right now, I happen to have essentially the best of the best. This is the Christmas wish list here. The Blade of the Guardian will be drawing attacks to my agent because of the Protect. The fact that enemy attacks are going to come to my agent will cause the ISOs to proc, it will cause the Ferric Shield to proc, and then it just basically means my Ionic Sledge will then be doing all of the work. Now here, it does say that the Blade of the Guardian does have a higher end damage output. However, the Ionic Sledge has the finest hour, so it gains a benefit that the Blade of the Guardian cannot. So we're going to go ahead and resume the Spec Ops. We'll do one combat and then we'll do a boss. You're going to see on the screen Union Jack and Captain Britain. They will be available within Beta 6. They will unlock by doing Season 1 story missions. I'm not going to reveal it quite yet, but suffice to say, I will say Union Jack is unlocked by doing one of the bigger mastery tasks. The stars that you get in each mission, that's considered mastery. So Union Jack will be available to you by doing quite a large amount of mastery, quite a amount of stars. And Captain Britain is unlocked in a specific mission up at the higher end of Season 1 content. So think Chapter 6 and above. Now I've gone ahead and used the Neurotrope And I'm going to go ahead and use the sledge and attack anything other than the bruiser and watch the damage that'll go out. Pretty solid damage, about half the hit points. And that single target attack is proccing the ISOs. So I'll gain the rising up buffs. We got AoE, so a bunch of people countered. Sometimes that happens. The attacks come a little bit late, but it's actually part of the counter. Union Jack, when I unlocked him, I gotta tell you, I was just so thrilled. It was so absolutely fun to use Union Jack again. I have not been able to initiate with him as much as I remember. I haven't really got him to join in on, well, he doesn't really join in on attacks. Let's see, chance for a follow-up attack when an ally does a counterattack. Yeah, actually, Allied Forces is supposed to be a working passive for him. It doesn't seem quite there yet. The buffs that he does, where it says, okay, I've used this ability, I can now counter melee, I can now counter ranged attacks, they seem to be working, but Allied Forces doesn't. And Allied Forces, of course, was a great thing with people like Hogun, Spider-Man Noir, you know, Rocket Raccoon, that was really a big one there. And then you could start even building him into, you know, people like Star-Lord, Scrappers getting extra attacks off of infiltrators and everything, or an infiltrator countering a tactician's also really good. Since we're using Vision in this match, let's go ahead and give him Scarlet Witch rather than Union Jack, just for the higher amount of points over there. There is a reason why I'm not clicking complete on that task over there. If you want to see that task get completed, then what you should do is join my stream on Twitch Tuesdays and Wednesdays during the week. They start both days at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and this Tuesday, we will be going ahead and taking care of that completed task that you see there on the left. So I'm gaining some rising up buffs there, partly because of my ISOs, partly because of the Ferric Shield. Scarlet Witch is going to open up with Hexed. It's pretty much her best opener. When you're running the Infiltrator version, you got to watch for Scrappers, and the Blaster version has to work for Tacticians. This uniform will not be available in Beta 6. I have it as a holdover from some of the earlier betas, but you will not see this uniform in Beta 6. Alright, so I've used the Neurotrope, which of course is going to make the team counterattack. And also the Rising Up buffs go out. I've got all of the Rising Up buffs, which is why I have Blasting of Heroes, which is that extra animation and that heal. We're going to go ahead and attack Vapor. Now, there's a weird thing going on when it comes to the Ionic Sledge. Well, actually, no. Now it's actually working. Never mind. I take that back. I'm going to have to correct that. It seemed like earlier my buffs were not activating when I was using the Sledge. But now they seem to be. That's a little bit different. Oof. Big explosion from X-Ray over there. However, oof. Yikes. Little crazy there with the counters. Sometimes that happens in the betas. The counters go off, but they sort of get stored, and they kind of just all go off at once, and it's just a crazy explosion. It's sort of like lagging in an online game and then rubber banding and like catching up and everything happens all at once. Sort of like that. All right, so could use the Ionic Sledge. This time I'm going to hit him with the Ferric Shield, though. You can see the Ferric Shield's damage is still pretty good, simply because we are buffed. And then there is the follow-up. And that, as you can see, is a good example of what this agent can do when you kit it out for a rising up team. Now, okay, that was weird. Okay, let's sort of doubled up on the spinner there. And, that was not well played over there. Somebody was still stuck in a deploy. I should have done one more battle. I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, somebody's still stuck over there, so we're just... Bye. We're closing out the mission. We're leaving you behind now. Defeat 15 AIM soldiers. Okay. So that is a pretty good example of what it is like to set up a rising up agent to do lots of really, really good damage. If I was to have the Neurotrope, the Sledge, yeah, we could keep the Ferric Shield, and then bring back in the Phoenix Flare or the Roar of the North that we've talked about in the farming videos, like how to effectively farm content for easy stars and everything. The Cosmic Flare, once buffed by a bunch of the buffs from the Neurotrope and the Ionic, or not the Ionic Sledge, but being attacked with the Ferric Shield, or using the Blade of the Guardian, or the Ionic Hammer, my god, the damage of that Phoenix Flare, once you've got a couple buffs going, is absolutely crazy. There really isn't too much in the way of heroes that could give the agent the rising up buffs. If you're like, okay, I want to use the Sledge for Finest Hour, but I don't really want my agent to be the one building up the buffs. Can I get it from other heroes who can supply it to him? The answer is yes. So Beast can do it. Beast can do it from the Grapes of Wrath, which gives it's basically Neurotrope on a stick. You get the combat awareness, but you also get the Sun Also Rises, which is rising up buffs. Hercules, yeah, Hercules absolutely loves his rising up buffs, but it's not like he provides it to the team. He just buffs himself. If you want to get partial rising up buffs from members of the team that aren't your agent, it can be done a little bit. So Cyclops can give you agile and combat awareness. If you get extra attacks in, you have an extra chance of gaining the rising up buffs with the setup that I showed you. But you also get agile, which counts. Thor will give the team strengthened, which is a rising up buff. Sif with Inspire Courage gives fortified, which is a rising up buff. There's Thor. He has Inspire Bravery. That's strengthened, really probably the best one of the bunch. If you're going to get a single target or a single aspect of the rising up buffs, Inspire Bravery is the way to go. I don't think Valkyrie doesn't really do anything there. It's like Sif, Thor, Beast is super good with it. Omega Sentinel tends to buff herself. No, actually, I take that back. Omega buffs the team with what she does. So the Plasma Torch, you'll notice, gives strengthened to the entire team. So she's really, really good at providing buffs to the agent if you don't have something like the Neurotrope. It takes more of a setup to do it. The Neurotrope gives you a bigger variety of buffs and is honestly the pinnacle of finest hour and rising up setups in the game. But you know, we have to cake in some of the poor man's options to it, because not everybody's going to be able to get really early access to things like the Blade of the Guardian and the Neurotrope, because I don't know how they're going to drop yet. Probability Field, I don't think gives you the right kinds of buffs for this, but let's just take a look. I think it's more things like regeneration. Nope. No, you've got a shot at it. Not great. About a 20%. Yeah, so you could attempt to use Scarlet Witch to give your agent the right buffs. I personally would rather prefer Pesty, or not Pesty, but Beast over Scarlet Witch. You could do any combo like Thor and Sif. You get 2 buffs that way. And, yeah, you know, Fortified's okay, especially if you're doing it in PvP. This version of Hulk, of course, gives you Warbringer, which is just increased damage. So there's some ways in Season 1 to get yourself a nice Rising Up agent. Most of it you can actually easily do yourself by getting into the spec ops and doing the tasks. So if we wanted to take a look here at the Ionic Sledge, which is really this is your damage dealer right here. Once you've got a few of the buffs going, this is what you want to try to kill people with. As you can see here, it is the Wonder Man Spec Ops in terms of where it is in the tasks. It is not too far down. It's task 11. So it's really not that hard to do. You would want to have, well, you don't need to have Juggernaut, but there is this task over here for him to use that punch. It's 4 times, I believe. Right now, beta 5.6, it's actually bugged. Even though I was using Juggernaut in the proper team up over there, I was not getting credit for the 4 times that I used Mountain Crusher. Not really too sure what was going on. First, I was just using Juggernaut in regular combat because I had him recruited, and it wasn't counting. So I was like, okay, maybe it only counts if we use him where he's a forced team up. That wasn't it either. So I kind of had to skip that task a little bit and continue. But right here, task 11, convert it from the hammer to the sledge. Not too deep into the spec ops to get that. And for the Ferric Shield, Special Ops Extremis, list of tasks. This one is a little further in, if I remember correctly. Where is? That's weird. The research isn't standing out. Let me check something over here. Upgraded version of the Ferric Blade. Yeah, it says it could be updated, but I'm not actually seeing a task that is jumping off of the task list over here at me. Usually, the icon for the task shows the finalized product. That's the fist ones. That's a rescue one. Oh, okay, it was that. I'm sorry. I was glancing at it out of the corner of my eye, and I thought it was like Red Hulk's head, but there it goes. 16 for that one. So you've got 11 for one of them, 16 for another. Really, really good single target damage output. And if you have a big put away weapon, a big AoE one like the Phoenix Flare, which I've suggested, or the Hot Shot, then you can modify your combat plan a little bit, which is you do some of the single target first to get the buffs going. Once you've got the buffs going, especially strengthened, then switch to something like the Hot Shot or the Phoenix Flare, and you'll do a bucket of AoE damage. So there you go. It's just a little team up or a little setup that I've been using extensively today as I was trying to get some of these spec op tasks going, and I thought I would share it with you guys, as except for the ISOs and the uniform, most of what I've shown you should be available within the Season 1 content when Beta 6 drops. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope I gave you some good ideas of something to look forward to. I know if I saw something like this and saw most of the gear being relatively accessible and simply a matter of either getting lucky on boss drops or just getting research done as part of the task, that's not too tough. That you can kind of walk through that and not have to do a ridiculous amount of effort like farming the custom possessed pistol or the custom only for killing or the power of 4 and things like that. So hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think of the team or the agent setup on this case. And yeah, let me know down below. Take care, everybody.